Hello everyone, take 100. We are back. Got the infamous Ben joining us. We have just tried it and it did work. Hurrah!
Yes. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's my settings in Instagram. I didn't realize had to be sorted out. So after all this time, thank you for your patience. Yeah. So.
Wonderful. So WYRD Wednesdays is just about finding wonderful practitioners who've really delved deep and hard into their work and have some different or real intuitive gift of learning how to heal. And I found Ben. I go to a gym called Brigade, and I was feeling pretty blocked in my entire body, and found I had a session with Ben and just knew that we were on the same page in lots of things. So really excited to be doing more work with Ben on my body, but also learning as well. So we've probably got 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'll try not to do any talking, but can we just, we talk about quite a lot then of these, or the autonomic nervous system, and on one side of the autonomic nervous system we've got the somatic system, which we don't talk about, which people don't know about, and that's kind of what you're doing, isn't it? You're using sensory energy, touch, looking at the afferent versus more afferent than efferent. Tell us about how you go about healing people in osteopathy.
Well, right at the very beginning, when we're trying to get connected at 1:05, you started off talking about education, and that is a very important part, because I find that we sort of neglect our own physical bodies in terms of education. There's so much that we don't know about ourselves, and we prioritize externally. Osteopathy really took me on a whirlwind of experience of that sensory information through the hands, palpation, and getting in touch with human anatomy as a whole, and also honing in and zoning into the sensation and feedback of different parts of the body. It's fascinating, really. Over time, I think it's been about a decade since I've been doing this now. So over that time, I've got a catalogue of sensory information about the human body. And something that I found really enhanced that journey for me was at the European School of Osteopathy. I met a Kung Fu master, and he was there for developing his mastership, where a master can not only inflict pain but can take it away. And so this was for me in the first year of my osteopathy, this early days, in the first module I met, his name's Tarek, Wing Chun Kung Fu, which is Chinese martial art, very ancient, and it's very, very much developed around the understanding control of the body. It pretty much evolved from a whole different scenarios of very extreme demands of the body. I mean, war and combat is very testing, you know. In a way, I see the same thing with strength and conditioning and yoga. They're unifying structures of the body to optimize us, to help us basically survive and be optimized.
And so, just to sort of interject a little bit, with the strength and conditioning and all the sort of exercise that we are doing, that people are doing, would you say that there's still an ability not to really listen to our bodies, to understand what's going on with our body, to understand sort of even in actioning or firing up muscles? We spend quite a lot of time, certainly maybe in the Western world, muscling up or building up, and not using a somatic way of, not using any sensory guidance. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that the balance is between the structure and the function of the body. I see the function part being the program, and the structure being the hardware. So, and unfortunately, our hardware responds to the software. So quite often we neglect the program in the back, and we just brute force our way through these movements that are prescribed, which is absolutely fine because there's a lot of benefit in moving the body anyway. But there's the fine-tuned control that really needs to be paid attention to. So, some of the elements from this that I think are really neglected is the sort of the centralized, the commanding headquarters, the brain, and the nervous system that comes out from that. Partly because when you're having to give out a lot of energy and a lot of information to the muscles to move, you're a dominant core out, but you're reducing sensory in. It's like if you've done a training and then you try and do some calligraphy after training, it's going to be all over the place, you know. So there is that sort of balance and requirement.
And so how can we get more in touch with this, with our nervous system? I mean, there are lots of ways to train your nervous system, functional movement and lots of kinesiology and kinesthetics and really looking at different ways. But how can it just, you know, if you're just going to the gym or you're doing your movement, how can we get more in touch with our afferent system?
Slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Say that again.
Slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I like that. I'll be stealing that.
Yeah, it's a great one, because quite a lot of movements that are done fast are chaotic first, and that risks harming the human body. When you do things slowly and you pay attention, you're commanding the nervous system, the joint awareness, the proprioception, all the muscle groups work more harmoniously together, and you get more out of it. So when you train slowly, it's a self-education process. But if you're doing something fast, you just like, it's skipping through. So like people, for example, when they're doing squats, they go down quite fast, and they ricochet off of that sort of like the hammock of all the hip muscles, and they bounce back and they skip crucial areas of places that they could get more value into training. So slow squats are for me a really important thing, especially if you've got lower back pain or issues with weightlifting. Really.
And what do you see what do you see in practice? Like, you know, the most common. I mean, trying not to be boring, but are there any new things you're seeing in the way the human body is evolving these days? You know, often we say we're digressing. You know, becoming more unfunctional.
It's reliance on the structure without paying attention to it. So it's taken for granted almost that you just, everyday life, the body just does what you need to do. And I find that people have a very common thing I see is people are way too passive in their postures. They don't stand with integrity and control. I want to really mix the martial arts and osteopathy together for something called like command yourself, and getting people to self-scan and to hold themselves well. There's so much potential for people to hack into that zone, and the significance of being too passive in the body is loading up the skeletal structures. You're loading up the facet joints and the lumbar spine way too much. A little bit of control and recognition of core integrity throughout the day. Everyone can slightly draw in their belly button towards their spine.
We all
has a huge
pulled
impact.
in our belly button.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't know if you can see here on the board, I have the Vitruvian Man. The circle around the body, the middle of the circle is the belly button, and the square around the body, the middle is the pubic bone. So quite often when I find that I have patients that have a certain sort of outsourcing and reliance on their body to do the work for them, I find that these are the two crucial areas that are sort of prescribed for people to reconnect. It's like drawing in the belly button and recognizing the position of the pubic bone. Those two parts, circle and the square together, have such a great effect on the rest of the body, and you get a lot more control. You know, the slow is smooth and smooth is fast. If you're moving from these positions, you can, it's even nice to like stir a cup of tea, for example. You can do, and you can feel the subtleties of movement rather than be like.
But I totally agree, and I like what you're saying, because I think that, you know, even in my digestive work with the Gut Clinic, you know, one of the first things I do is check people's breathing, and without full breath or sending breath to the visceral system, then we have a sluggish system. A lot of people breathe invertedly. A lot of people don't flare the ribs. There's no movement. It just stays all up here in this sort of sympathetic shortness of breath place.
Yeah.
And I think that we've
Sorry
lost the importance of posture. Would you, you know?
That's exactly. I'm going to stand up for
Yeah,
a moment, because most people, it's letting go of this, and the pelvis tilts forwards, and there's a disconnect between the pubic bone and the belly button. So you see this sort of dropping down, and like this visceral
Extension.
and then because of that, the ribs are depressed, and you lose a sense of the cavity pressures. There should be a really nice balanced cavity pressure, and just bringing the belly button towards the spine and slightly raising the pubic bone gives this great pressure system. It's great for all the organs. Everything supports each other. You know, it's like a family of things working together. The liver has a better pressured system through the gallbladder, the way that the sort of what's called the duodenum coming across, and the pancreas is held very horizontal, and that matches up with the diaphragm. And you know, quite a common thing is I see with patients is heartburn or reflux. And I think that has an effect from this system of compression down, flaring out, and the organs dropping down slightly. So bringing that integrity back into the system, and standing with an active posture is so important. The diaphragm settles and stacks with the pelvic floor as well. So it's a nice sort of cupping system. So everything's contained in here. So, and especially, I mean, since all the stuff with the COVID, I've been working really a lot with people's respiratory mechanisms. And then this is the sort of homework to have more control of the core, and it generally improves all the systems. And I like it because it's very centralized. And I think that priority number one is the commanding headquarters, the central structures, and keeping that in a nice, like, contained alignment. You know, it's if it's too peripheral, then it's exposed to risks of everyday life, like mechanical strains, imbalances, just underuse. So etiquette or control is so important. So
I like that. It's a good having integrity in how you hold yourself, which is sort of, you know, we're so fast and busy these days that we forget that our abdominal wall is distended or off, and our glutes are off, and our knee pain is because our glutes are off, and our kyphosis is starting to creep in, and all this sort of dysfunctional posture, which then leads to the digestive or whatever else is going on.
Most people's sensory dominance is in their hands and in their mouth. This is like the sensory dominance, really. And the rest of the body is almost like forgotten. There's a really interesting thing called a homunculus. It's a visual representation of the proportions of the human body about the sensory distribution. So the hands are really big, the lips are really big, but all the other parts of the body are really slender, because there's that it's not lightened up, that sensory information. So part of what I do with actually my treatments is to try and lighten up that sensory feedback. So I'm treating through muscle, ligaments, bones, joints, but actually it's my hands-on feedback I'm giving to the nervous system to remind it of what there is there and how it works together. I like purposely hold ankles and knees together. I'm like, I want to communicate. You know.
And how does that work with you know, when you do scar tissue treatment?
Anything with trauma Trauma
Yeah.
memory is an interesting one. Sometimes when I put my hands on like somebody that's had a surgery, I can feel the history of what the mechanical strains have been. So recently I had somebody had quite a severe motorbike accident,
Oh, right.
and somebody pulled out on him, he hit into the side of the car, and both his arms under the impact broke, and he had reconstructive surgery. But when I put my hands onto that area, I can still feel like his arms wanted to sort of fold back in this direction. So the treatment, even though there's scar tissue, is to encourage sort of a resetting to normality. So it's not just through the muscles, it's the connective tissue, it's the skin, it's the muscles, and it's the sensory nervous system that is receiving all that information. So I call it remolding when it comes to scar tissue. Yeah.
And with your with the Kung Fu, do you still practice that daily?
Every single day. Yeah.
Every single day. And what would you say are the biggest, you know, I did a small bit of Tai Chi, which I really got into and should really do more of it. It's sort of that classic, we haven't got enough time to do the slow things. We've got all the time in the world to do 5 classes of HIIT every week.
Yeah.
But for me, the Tai Chi, and I imagine it's the sort of, there's a similarity to it, is the sort of wisdom that it brings you, the clarity of mind and the integrity of which you have control over your body and mind, almost exactly at the same time, which I feel is more true of a martial art than it is of yoga. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. I like the structure behind it. It's almost like with language, you have the grammar, which is what's it? I've lost the words. Finite, and the vocabulary is infinite. So you have the base of the language, and the Kung Fu gives a language. It's, for me, if I'm to train my form, just like, for example, one sentence from the form would look like this. And it's called Sin and Tao because in translation, it means thousands of little ideas. So from here, I'm opening my hands in a certain method. I'm not opening like this. There's control to the rollout. I have depression for the shoulders, and it's always exactly here. One hand's distance from the body, it covers the top of the shoulders. And I know that if I train this into my muscle memory, I have a nice way to build my shields. It's my biogeometry for external communication. The punch, for example, from the second sentence, looks like this. It comes to here, and it comes out to the end. External rotation, internal rotation, back. But for me, it's that as well. Covers the top of the chin. It's to the top of the sternum, and it's exactly in the middle. It's not over, it's not to the side. So what I found is that it gave me a definite position muscle memory, and through that whole collective, through the whole system, for all the different endpoints and transitions, it gives me a way to converse in a more dynamic way. That's why I like, with my Kung Fu master, I've had real equilibrium style fights where the conversation is more like poetry, and that brought in a double-edged sword, because the more you know how to destroy the body, the more you know how to fix it. And the other way around as well. So it's an educational system for sure. It's quite powerful, and it's ancient. So
and it's ancient. Exactly. And where do you come from on, you must be able to feel this because you're touching bodies every day and being able to feel the quality of the muscle tissue, the integrity of ligaments and tendons and elasticity in the body as well. And are you able to sort of marry a good diet with a good integrity of body or
100%.
of muscles and ligaments against maybe a bad, highly processed or inflammatory diet?
100%. It's almost immediate when I get somebody walk into the room.
Yeah.
It's the quality of the skin as well that gives a big signpost for me. Somebody asked me today, they were complaining that they were fat.
Yeah.
And I said, at least it's good quality.
Well, did that soften the blow? Did they like? Did they take
Yeah,
that
they
to
like
them?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well,
Yeah.
I can feel in the fat that they're not taking all these sort of artificial preservatives and chemicals. That it, for me, when you've got someone that drinks like Monster energy drinks, their fat feels like a little bit more sort of turbulent. I don't know if that's the right word
Yeah,
to
I
use.
always found it quite difficult to, when I used to do quite a lot of caliper testing, to take the muscle, or to separate the fat from the muscle, if you like. So in diets in people that had bad, worse diets, it was very difficult, especially on the quadriceps, to take a reading of fat because it was so entwined into the leg. I couldn't pick anything up. You should be able to do a bit of rolfing all over your body, even though it hurts. But you should be able to
see it on MRI scans,
right.
for
Yeah.
healthy people and unhealthy people. It's like the sort of MRI scans pre-escalators in America. People that walked upstairs, you could do an MRI and look at the lower back muscles, the multifidus, and the fat that's surrounding it.
Yeah.
It seems to be more that it's laid down in areas that is like well distributed, and people that were not exercising, having bad diets, the fat seems sort of intertwined within sort of the muscle complex, and it seems more chaotic on the scans. It's like pristine or not. It's like you can find MRI comparisons between people that are sort of like in their 70s and 80s, people that train have good diets compared to people that don't, and you can see sort of a chaos of fat and like fascia and connective tissue. It looks disrupted compared to somebody that trains and eat well. It looks pristine. It looks nice. It's nice to look at.
We used to work at used to work with a surgeon called Simon Moyes. I think he's at the Wellington, and my partner from my old clinic used to do a lot of work with him, and he used to say these days bodies cut like butter because they're which is awful, but he'd say 20 years ago that it was hard to get through ligaments and tendons, and it was gristly. And these days, because of the quality of the food and the quality of the soil, we're eating food with less integrity. Definitely. And that feeds, I think sometimes we forget that we are, food makes up every single cell in our body. And
I
so
think
it plays a huge...
our whole ecosystem of diet has been really messed up, really. We're suffering the consequences of that really hard now. The soil integrity got destroyed. And then the plant's integrity got destroyed, and then what we get from it is way less.
We're so inefficient.
We're so degenerate.
Let's end on a good note. Ben,
it's been an amazing journey, like connecting with people and teaching them these things. I get such good results. People are like, oh my God, and they really connect. And I'm looking forward to sending more people towards you as well. And this sort of cleanse, refresh, re-engage, and actually appreciate and be grateful for what you have.
Absolutely. Just the whole touch we're missing. We've had 3 years of no touch, and just to be for healing hands, to check someone's breathing, to pick up a body and be able to give it the energy and the tweak and the sensory input is just a magical thing. I mean, I had a session with you last week and you unblocked a whole load of stuff. I always love the diaphragm. It's always called it the seat of emotion. And when you can release your diaphragm, suddenly this waterfall comes out of people just releasing emotion. I always used to call it, with NMT practitioners or VM, it's therapy with no talking. And when you find a practitioner who can release the blockages, not only physically, but emotionally and mentally at the same time, you're in a very, very precious set of hands. And I think you have them, Ben.
I love that flow. It's for me what really keeps me doing osteopathy. Really,
absolutely,
it's for me the more I can hone in and to serve the person that's coming to see me to like a tailored degree. That's where I'm sort of like trying to aim my mastery of osteopathy and martial arts is in that direction. Really
amazing.
to be concise.
So you can find Ben. I'm going to put a link to where you can find him. Follow him on Instagram, Body Care Osteopathy. He works in Kent as well, and at Brigade, which is the gym we both go to, started by Tom Jarrett, another tour de force and legend.
Definitely.
So, guys, thanks so much for putting up with us. We both learned a bit more about Instagram, but certainly more about the human body.
Apologies for that. But, it's a learning curve.
And Ben, thanks so much for having you. I definitely have you on again and learn more, certainly about that Kung Fu and the power of touch. Yeah,
it'd be nice to speak more about these things for sure. So thank you for having me.
Not at all, not at all. More to come.
Yeah, good.
Okay, guys, if you've got any questions, please do send them to me or direct them straight to Ben, and I'll send out where you can find him in the post. In the meantime, go and get educated.
Take care.
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye-bye.